All right, I believe we're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're going to just jump into today's show. We might be having Mugen Lord join us here in a little bit. We've got a bunch of different topics that we want to sit down and cover with you guys today. Namely, right now we have like breaking news that the YouTube premium price hike has just, or is going into effect, and it's got some people with sticker shock. We want to talk about that. We're going to talk about the great news of this week, which was the Switch 2 news. For those of you who haven't seen that, we're going to be talking about Dragon Age, the Veilguard sales figures, and if we have time, we'll wrap up today's show with 20 questions. But we will see how it goes. Chris, welcome in, sir. How was your week? You were out last week. You had a conflict that just came up last minute.
It did.
But how you been? How you been, sir?
Good.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
you're back.
Yeah. I got offered a software update that shut down all of my monitors at once. It was very kind of, a peripheral to offer that. I'm good. I'm getting back into 14 this week. Goal will be to start chasing Omni, and I'll stick with it till then.
It's a good time to get back into it because 7.1, I believe, drops next week, which is going to add obviously all the fun and good stuff that people have been looking forward to, since the launch of Dawn Trail. So I can't wait to hear your thoughts about it.
Yeah, and then I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty, so I'm about to wrap up my second.
Me too.
I'm about to go to Prestige 2.
Not as much as you, but I've been loving this Call of Duty season.
I think I've got like 25 or 30 hours in it already.
Okay. Yeah.
So pretty substantial. Yeah, I think it's been a great Call of Duty entry. Where do I see this YouTube news? Where do I see this? Like,
let me see if I can get you a link for everybody. Let's see here.
I have not heard this. There was some news last year when it went to, I guess, $14 a month. And so there was some frustration then, but it kind of just put it in line with everything else. And so like premium is still something that improves my life.
All right. Let me drop this link into chat, and then I'll put it in as a private link as well.
It lets me keep downloaded videos on my phone in case I'm ever like in a plane and they don't have their stuff running. And so I keep it, so I download videos that I like to watch more than once. And
it says YouTube Premium
me keep it minimized on my phone.
Yeah, let me just add this to the screen share. Oh, dude, I love YouTube Premium. It's absolutely incredible. But if we toss this up on screen, premium price, people are furious. Hikes prices up to $40. Are they nuts?
Real.
In certain areas, right? So November 7th, users began receiving notifications that the cost of the YouTube Premium subscription would increase in just 1 month on December the 7th. One screenshot shared to Reddit showed the price would raise from $16.99, aka 22 USD, to $25.99, $33.70 USD. And so, yeah, like this is a huge.
Is there something from YouTube about why they're doing it, or is it just like, is Reddit our only source?
Right now, it looks like it's Reddit the only source. I haven't seen a blog or anything like that. It was just like,
okay.
Absolutely. It was just like literally as we were getting ready to go live. I was like,
then I'm not gonna freak out at all then. If Reddit is my only source, I am not gonna live my life based on that. I use Reddit for a lot of things, but I don't let existential dread come from Reddit because it has that an endless supply, and some of it is exaggerated. Because I don't see anything.
That's true.
I don't see anything from YouTube. I don't see anything from major outlets.
I wonder if this was something that just went and accidentally went live just so people were seeing this price hike increase a little bit sooner, and YouTube hasn't come out with justification. Because what would be a really good justification for that kind of price increase is it's saying like, hey, YouTube Premium is now also YouTube TV. Like we're literally combining these two different subscriptions into one subscription. And honestly, if they did that, I'd be perfectly fine. And it goes into the story that we're talking about here today, because have you seen the GeForce Now news that they announced this week?
No.
Okay, well,
I saw an Nvidia employee had retired and spent $2 million seeking out the new largest prime number because he's younger than I am and is retired. And I doubt he only had $2 million if that's what he spent. So, we're living different lives. I really want that WoW mount, and I know that's a
The
wildly
$90
controversial
one?
thing to say. I understand. I have been like struggling with it. If it had been $40, I wouldn't have even asked. I would have just done it. But at $90, it's dumb. But our phone plan has just slowly crept up over the years, and my wife has been asking me to switch us phone providers. And the savings for like the initial 3 months to go to the other phone provider is like $200. And so she's like, just get the mount and switch our phone plan. Like, will you just please switch our phone plan? I need you to deal with it. I don't have time to deal with this. Will you switch our phone plan and buy the mount? And I'm like, that still feels, even though it's discovered money, it still feels reckless. And then I listened to that guy spend $2 million seeking out prime numbers. And I was like,
All right.
I don't know. I mean, maybe the $90 mount is, maybe I'm losing money not to get the $90 mount.
That's the
it's the first paid mount I've ever wanted. Yes, it is timed. It goes away in January.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I have to do it by the end of the year.
I say get them out. Like,
there's never wanted just exclusively a paid mount from them.
There's
never
like
when it's tied to something like BlizzCon or something like that. Or
I got the whale mount.
I like when it's part of something. But yes, this is like the whale mount. This is exactly like that. I wanted the whale mount because I wanted the whale mount, and I want this Brutosaur because I want this Brutosaur. And it's dumb and it's stupid, and they have made a preposterous amount of money on it, even from the people who are like, well, I just did it to buy tokens. Yes, but they sold out of tokens. They sold out. There were no more tokens. There were brief outages where they're like, we can't even trade gold in for real money fast enough. So at $90, I have no idea how much money they made. But there's just screenshot after screenshot of just 100 of them in a city. And each time you're like, okay, so that's thousands of dollars every time you see one of those.
Yeah.
And I want it. I do. And I understand that if I ever go back to full-time streaming and I mount up to use it, like immediately there's going to be hate. I understand that for the rest of my life, I polluted my account with something that is like the enemy of the people. But they would have made more money if they made it for gold. Yes, because the thing people that are mad about is they're like, why didn't they just make it gold like last time? But they didn't do the math on how the majority of the previous Brutosaurs, which were bought with gold, were not bought with gold. They were bought with people purchasing tokens. And when you do the math on how much they had to spend on tokens back then, it was way more than $90. It was way more. It was hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
That's insane. I say get them out, Chris. You've been hitting milestone goals this year. You've been able to sock away a little bit of money, and if you do I take your wife's side on this. Like, if you go and switch the phone plan, you're still netting $110. It's like you're still
saying I wanted a new bike for 3 years, and she's like, "You wanting things doesn't cost us money anymore because you don't buy them."
Yeah,
like I just talk about them all the time.
It's free to talk about them. I'd like to have a new car at some point.
I was on this rack with these other guys, and one of them was talking about how what's holding them back is in triathlons you can purchase time. Is kind of a joke. Is that if you purchase better equipment, your time will come down. And there was one guy that was talking to the others, and he's like, "Well, my bike's like 10 years old, and so that's what's slowing him down." And I'm sitting on the rack, and they're all just talking about their bikes that are all like 2 to 4 years old, and the one guy's is 10. My bicycle is from 1984. My bike turns 40 this year. It probably weighs as much as their 4 bikes combined. Yeah. I'm aware that an upgrade, I could buy the used bike they don't even want anymore. And it would probably substantially improve my ability to maintain speeds above 13 to 15 mile an hour. Because I rented a bike when we were for one of the events, and like, yeah, it was night and day. So I don't know.
I say get them out.
I want them out. It's stupid.
I say get them out because this could be interesting to see. Because like $90, that is such a. We've come so far from the microtransaction to the point where we really shouldn't call it macros. I guess the M still is apt. It's like, hell, massively multiplayer online is shifted to massively multiplayer optional, in its design, which is actually business savvy. That is making a lot of sense. And we're not closing the door on cash shops. Like, they're just there is just no way to seal that genie back in the bottle. So I say, go ahead and get the mount. Like that, if you want it, and it's especially because they put a time frame on it, and the fact that they're going to take it out of the store in January, smart business. I don't blame them.
I'm not proud of wanting it. I understand why people are upset.
Yeah.
I understand that people that have the mount that tell people that are upset that they shouldn't be upset, and maybe they're only upset because they're poor, is stupid. Like the idea that there's just name callings on both sides. You're the reason we're ruining the game. World of Warcraft is not ruined from the $90 mount.
Yeah,
it's not. Alternatively, people can think it's dumb to buy a $90 mount in a digital game that when it goes offline, it's gone, for plenty of reasons besides they can't afford it. It's like buying a Coke at the movies.
Yeah.
It's like paying for a bump to first class on a flight that is under an hour. Like it just, there people spend money however they want.
If it's free, I'll sit in first class. But
at $20, I would have been mad they didn't just include it with the purchase of the game for an extra $20. Like, it's so little. Why did you even ask me? I pay $15 a month for this game. Just take my money. At $30, I'm like, you know what? I appreciate you asking. Don't worry about it. Let Chris worry about Chris. I got you. I get the guac at Chipotle sometimes. I'm doing it. At $50, I would have said no, and I would have come back a week later, and I would have been like, I hate you, but fine. At $90, I just can't. It has been like hanging over my head since it went live, and I will probably end up buying it like 4 hours before the time limit ends, and then miss it because of a time zone, and then be mad at myself.
Well, keep it locked here, guys, for Brutosaur Mount Watch, whether Chris decides to jump in on that.
So now I don't think YouTube's $40, but
and that's obviously
somebody. If it's Reddit,
a family plan.
It's probably a family plan, the highest price, at an unfavorable currency conversion through a platform like Apple that is tacking on 30%.
Yeah.
And then they're like adding taxes or whatever. And so like, that's somebody that's like, I've worked out the single most expensive way to obtain premium on a device. And it's a lot. Yes. And nobody's doing that. Yeah. I don't know.
So to pivot into kind of our second news story of the day, we've got the GeForce Now changes. GeForce Now this week announced that they wouldn't be increasing the price of their service, but instead adding in 100-hour cap of per month that you can play, with a rollover of, if you don't, 15 hours max. So you can roll over month over month an additional 15 hours, but you will have to purchase more time in 15-hour chunks from them if you do go over the 100-hour limit. Now, here's the problem. I'm like, just increase the price. Like the value was never having to worry about being metered. And so the reaction is exactly what I thought it was going to be. When I learned of the news, because I am a GeForce Now ambassador, I go, it's fine if you want to have like a tier that does that, but you should also have an unlimited tier for people who want it, because and their justification is that only 6% of their player base plays more than 100 hours. But that in and of itself, I think, self-defeats their entire reason for doing it. It's like, if only 6%, like I see why you think that, but I was like, you're now telling somebody who doesn't know how much they're going to use your service.
This is gem memberships. Keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
Slowly ratchet up the price and internally go, I can't believe most of these idiots are not using what they pay for.
Right. Why put that limit? Because that's been the biggest selling point that I've always had, because people thought that they had an 8-hour a day limit, and it's like, no, you have an 8-hour a session limit, meaning after 8 hours they're going to kick you out and you can press a button and you're right back in.
No,
but it's
I pay for my gym membership in 12-month chunks, and there are whole months of the year where I don't go, and they have my money.
They already have your money.
I guarantee none of us are exceeding the 6%. Right? I guarantee less than 6% of gym members are using the equipment, the amount that it is rated at per user. Most of us are just purchasing access, and we're not using it. No, I
know I'm not using the full 100,
because I think it backfires. I think we just aren't set up for it culturally. It may work in other places that are running more off of like LAN cafe type models.
Oh, that's true.
So like people that pay for World of
What
Warcraft
they
access
need.
hourly because they play in LAN cafes. So it's like, well, I pay for my computer hourly, I pay for the game hourly. Makes sense. But in the US, like we are an over-consuming society in everything we do. Like we are super good at things like diabetes. And so I just it's fine. Start to set more aggressive things where like if you're AFK, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's costing them a lot that people are AFK. Maybe they think they're going to teach us to like turn our crap
They
off.
already kick you out if you've been AFK for any like period of time. It feels reasonable. I've been able to set down my handheld, go get some, help the kids with a few things, and then come back and I'm still in. And occasionally when I come back, it's got like a 60-second counter saying like, hey, by the way, we're about to time you out of this. So I up to this point. Up to this point, GeForce Now has been, I think, one of the best values in gaming. They continue to add more games. We were starting to see Square Enix bring their games. They brought Final Fantasy 16 to it. They're bringing more games to it at day and date.
I think 100 hours is a reasonable number. Like I think the average person is not getting to 100 hours in a month. So we're freaking out over nothing, but it doesn't matter because the market freaks out over nothing all the time.
All the time.
So just because it's dumb doesn't mean you don't have to adjust for it in your marketing strategy.
To me, it's the failure that they don't then just say, hey, okay, we don't want to change the price on these tiers. We think this is really a good value. And we know that people in these tiers don't hit 100 hours. In fact, they don't even come close, right? But we are going to just then add a new tier, which accounts for that like unlimited nature so that somebody can just opt into it rather than worry about the price point that's being had.
Add what's up, Mugen? To the cost. And then in a year, go back and add the old cost back and say, we understand we left some people behind. If you want to get back in at this price, we have it available for people that just game occasionally. We do unfortunately have to put a limit on it, but we are aware. Don't do them the same day because then come on, at least try to move the cups around so I lost track of the ball. But I don't know. Yeah, it's not a big deal, but consumers will be upset.
They are. They're upset within the internal Discord server. I've seen them upset online. I talked with Val about this, and he was like, and just to catch you up, Mugen, we're talking about the GeForce Now changes where they're putting in a 100-hour cap per month of playtime, and you have to pay for more if you need more. But yeah, I talked to Val, and he's like, well, I'm just going to buy a PC now. Like, they're defeating the entire value proposition.
If you sleep, eat, shower, go to Wendy's and game.
Okay. I don't understand.
So you mean 100 hours before you should have just bought your own device? Yeah.
So how does this work? This 100-hour thing? I don't know anything about this. This
dude.
Nvidia thing. Like, how does this work?
So for the longest time, it's been unlimited. So you basically are renting a high-end gaming PC in the cloud, and Nvidia GeForce Now was the second best service under Stadia, but they are now the best service in terms of performance and cloud gaming. Lagless, lossless cloud gaming. And the reason now why they're the number one is that they always integrated with your Steam library or your Xbox library or your Ubisoft or your Epic library. So you're not rebuying any of these games. It's just I'm renting a computer in the cloud and I'm playing them. And it's been unlimited. Now, for me, like I know I don't get anywhere close to 100 hours, but today they announced going to effect, I guess, maybe in next year or a year from now, they're giving everybody a big window that they're going to limit you to 100 hours and you'll get 15 hours of rollover every month. So if you don't use the 100 hours, you can roll in more, hours. It feels like we're going backwards because like y'all remember cell phone plans and minutes and all these and rollover. And now it's like, it's just give us unlimited. We're going to overconsume it, but they're now putting in that place and gamers aren't happy. And it really, I think, defeats the value proposition of that. I just want to sit down and play a game and I don't want to have to do math while I'm playing it. I don't want to calculate the cost. And so it's causing some people because like I've been a big proponent of GeForce Now. And that's why I wanted to talk about it with you guys on the show just as a start. Because I think the bigger news is the Switch 2 news that I'd like to get y'all's thoughts on. But when it's said and done, I'm like, why? Like they said they don't want to raise the price. And I think what I'm seeing universally, and I'm sure there's people out there they don't care one way or the other, but what I see from the most vocal pushback is just raise the price. Like if you have to just raise the price, why are you putting in this like artificial limiter? I think it's going to cost them more money in the long run, but that's what's happened this week. It was a disappointing, piece of news at least from my perspective. Do you do any cloud gaming or?
No, that's why like I heard of Nvidia now. I just didn't know what it was because I don't really mess with it and stuff. So when I saw
Yeah.
articles about it and see $100, like what does that even mean? So I didn't bother to look into it because I don't mess with it. So
My brothers both play with GeForce Now, and the reason they do that is because they don't game enough in a year to justify purchasing a device.
Right.
Which means in a given month, they're not hitting 100 hours of PC time. This ignores time on their Xboxes and their Switches. And then in addition to that, any month you don't hit 100 hours, you've got 115 the next month. So like even in a month that some new Cyberpunk DLC or whatever comes out and they want to go hard, if they go to 102, they're still not kicked out. So I think they're fine. I think the bigger concern is this kind of slippery slope, which there was a recent show where I was asked if I believe slippery slope is a thing. And I was asked in real time and I didn't have a chance to kind of like ponder that.
Right.
And so I kind of said like, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. And I would go back, if I could go back and react to that previous podcast, I would say, what I really believe in space like this is that things are iterative. I don't believe it's slippery. Slippery implies that once we start sliding down, NVIDIA
can't stop.
We don't even want to do the hour cap, and there's no way back. Yes, they're not sliding down a hill. But if we don't push back on this, it can become 75. If we don't push back on that, it can become 50. If we push back on this, the next iteration may be, hey guys, we're going to remove the cap, but price is going back up.
Yeah, and I think that's what will be interesting to see, because when it's said and done, the thing I don't mind if somebody changes their opinion. You know, if Nvidia came back and said, "Hey, we heard you guys, and okay, that means we're thinking about doing this," I think that would be a perfectly fine conversation, because at the end of the day, people are going to vote with their wallets. But for the fact is that with Mugen not knowing what GeForce Now was, hearing it, that tells me they also have a big marketing problem, because it's like, yeah, like, and I get it, like, that, for people who are wary of, cloud gaming, I think that's going to be something, because they've, for the longest time, been the premier service that I've been recommending, namely because of their integration with Game Pass, of their integration with all these things. And we'll see what happens. We'll see. We'll see. Bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see if it plays out for them. All right. I want to talk to you guys about Nintendo Switch 2.
Let's go.
Because this week, just utter relief was announced when they have confirmed officially that while they're not yet talking about the Switch 2, that the Switch 2 will be backwards compatible with your Switch library. And so I have been, and this was something people were like, oh, they were going to, of course, do that. I go, yes, that was the expectation I had too. However, I also have a history with Nintendo where just because something's expected, or every sign points to them going left, I've seen them hard pivot to the right and be like, yep, you got to rebuy all your games, or yep, there's going to be a fee to turn your license into a Switch 2 license. But this news this week was so relieving, because that just means that I'm not because I literally was legitimately worried about it, because I'm like, yes, Switch 2, let's go Nintendo, huge Nintendo fanboy. But there was always that risk, because we haven't seen them do that in the past. We did not see that from the Wii to the Wii U. We did there has been hard lines in the sand drawn from Nintendo every generation. And while it just makes business sense for them not to have it this time around, now we know that they're not doing that, and which is really relieving. What do y'all think about the news here?
Because that's a video that I'm doing for next week. I already recorded it already and everything.
Nice.
I was hoping for backwards compatibility, for the simple fact is most of my backlog are Nintendo Switch games. And it would just be a bummer that I have all these games, and then when Switch 2 comes out, it's not even backwards compatible, which means I have to have my Switch 2 and I have to have my original Switch just to go back and play everything on my backlog, which I thought would be ridiculous. Plus, Nintendo, they have a big install base with the Switch. It's still they are making money. It'd be so stupid for them to not go add backwards compatibility and just lose that entire install base. Why not carry that install base over to the next platform? So now people buy Switch 2 and can still play their entire library. And plus, when it comes to game preservation, Nintendo Switch is the console that you can play mostly all the previous games, like especially with their online service. You have Nintendo 64, Game Boy Advance, NES, SNES. Just recently, they announced Xenoblade Chronicles X. So now you got all the Xenoblade games on the Nintendo Switch, all on one console and everything. So you have all of these games, and now Nintendo Switch is going to be backwards compatible. So now I don't feel worried now, that I can actually still continue to play my backlog of games. So I just think it was a smart move on their part,
Yeah. Chris, any thoughts on this Nintendo news?
I think it was good news. I do wonder what happens if we ever move away from a Switch style platform, right? Do they maintain this policy? So if we move back to, because Switch 3, Switch 4, Switch 5, but what happens when we do something that's truly different? Because Nintendo is somebody who
I agree.
Every Xbox looks like the previous Xbox, just with better technology, but Nintendo platforms are not that way.
I agree.
The Nintendo 64 to the GameCube to the Wii, these are huge transformations. So if we ever change something, will this maintain? That's not like a fear; it's just a question.
Yeah.
And then, does this allow them to increase sales even further? Because the advantage is that, I own Breath of the Wild, my sister-in-law owns Breath of the Wild, my nephew owns Breath of the Wild, and when I was a kid, that would have been one copy of Breath of the Wild that we were sharing. And now they own that forever. There's no account trading like these GameStop type models of buying used games. A lot of that's gone. For the vast majority of us, when you buy a digital game, that's just it. So I'd just be interested to see the numbers and see does this actually work out to their favor? Because Pile of Shames is that's a huge part of Steam's business model. Not to dig on it, but I'm just saying if Steam put a policy in that you have to finish 15% of a game before you're allowed to buy another one, they make a lot less money. There is a huge amount of Steam games that are in people's libraries from the Steam sales and bundles and all this stuff that you look and you're it's never even been installed, much less played, much less played to the point that I'm actually done with it, whether or not that's completion. So does this help them? Is there something to this that we're hey, I think we're actually coming out ahead here?
It's going to be interesting
to see the numbers.
Yeah, I can't wait just to learn what the Switch 2 is, and I really hope that it's not called Switch 2, but they call it the Super Nintendo Switch. Yeah, let's go SNES baby for a whole new generation. But I guess I got a good question, obviously coming from Fido in chat talking about this, physical or digital, right? Do you think, obviously, when it's all said and done with the shift we're seeing with the Xbox and the PlayStation, do you think Nintendo support when we talk about backwards compatibility that they haven't gone out and said that there's a physical slot in this device? The Switch 2 could literally be an all digital console and thus essentially solve one problem out of that is it's your digital library that comes forward, not your physical. You might have to hold on to that physical copy. What do you think, Mugen? Because this is a real hot topic for a lot of gamers who love that physical media.
Yeah, well, looking at Nintendo is always slow to do everything. When Sony and Microsoft went to HD gaming, it took a while before they went to HD gaming. Even with their online service, they was behind on that. I still believe that Nintendo will still be the last person to just go all digital. So I'm thinking that if we do get something that's all digital, we'll probably get a Nintendo Switch 2 that's pretty much physical, and then we have a digital Nintendo Switch 2. For all digital, Sony and Microsoft have been doing and everything. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I don't think they'll go just hell with just physical and just go strictly digital. I think we'll probably have two options to probably pick from if if we want to do as consumers. So I'm not worried about that.
Switch 2 Deluxe. Just put all the ports on it.
And
put everything back in there.
Yeah, and like you were saying, before, Nintendo always, when it comes to their consoles and everything, they always do something different. That's why earlier, when people were hearing rumblings about a Switch 2, I kept saying a Nintendo console. I never said Switch 2 because
that's what they called it.
Yeah, exactly. So I kept saying Nintendo console because there's no guarantee that it can be a Switch 2 and everything. But it's it's leaning that it may be a Switch 2, but they can still surprise us. They can still surprise us. We don't know
that's the
what
worst
they have
part of the Switch 2.
Yeah,
is after the Wii came the Wii U.
Yeah.
They don't win them all. But we remember them for their successes. But
but I think the thing with Switch, what they did so much differently is that they just meshed together their handheld department with the console department, and I just think that they just nailed it. You know what I'm saying? It's a hybrid of both. So like it'd be kind of stupid for them, but it's Nintendo. But it'd be kind of stupid for them to go walk away from that. That'd be crazy. But I had a theory that if it wasn't going to be a Switch 2, that they would treat their Switch 1 as their handheld moving forward, while the Switch 2 would be a traditional console, but a more powerful console. And that was a theory that I had earlier on, but who knows?
Well, hopefully we don't have to wait too much longer. I know that they originally were talking about maybe having it come out this fall, but then then they, not necessarily announced, but it's like, nope, not this year, so maybe 2025 we'll finally learn about whatever this.
Do you think
next
they're waiting for the
iteration
Switch
is.
to finally fall off? Like, this is going to be the first, I think, Christmas season where the Switch doesn't just utterly.
Yeah, they've hit like a high level of market saturation, for sure.
It turns out we each only want to own 2 or 3 of these things. Like,
Right.
there is a limit.
Now, see, I think if anything, we could possibly get an announcement of the console by the Game Awards somewhere near December, but then officially get like the release of it around March. Because didn't Switch 1 come out in March? That's my birthday month. Yeah. So I can see them announcing the next platform, the next console in December or January or something like that, and then just drop it in March. I can see that happening.
What was great about that, they would like call back to like 8 years ago, which is wild to think of how long we've actually had the Switch, was they didn't give us years of lead time. Like, it literally was like, okay, here it is. They announce it slightly in October. They talk about it again in January, and then boom, it's out in March. And so you're not like sitting here going like, oh man, I can't wait 9 months until the Switch comes out.
Well, because remember, guys, you guys also understand what position it was in. The Wii U was just bombing. The Wii U was like the Wii U was so bad, so they had to just discontinue it. They said, look, we just want to abandon ship. It was a failed experiment. We got to get this next console out. That's why it just felt like they just announced it, and then after they announced it, the next thing you know, it was coming out. It was just that they just felt that fast.
So we need to all take a hit, and everybody needs to go out and buy one so we can push them over. We need to sell 11 million more, and then they'll announce the Switch 2.
Yeah, pretty much. That's exactly what it is. We gotta get it. Just 11 million more Switches out there in the wild.
In some boardroom, there's one of those little charts that they color in with marker, and they're just
it's the goal.
Once we hit our goal
here,
once we've sold enough Girl Scout cookies, then we can.
And Nintendo fans were getting like frustrated, like when they going to announce the next console, or when they going to announce like Mario Kart 9. I said, yo, they're dominating right now. Like they're PS5 and X and with the Xbox Series X, yes, they're next generation consoles, but they haven't really made games that's worth people to ditch their last generation to move over. And Nintendo's just doing good. Like, why throw out another console? Why make Mario Kart 9 when Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is still dominating in the sales charts?
And they just sold like a whole nother like pack of maps and like racetracks and stuff like that. I haven't picked it up yet, but my kids have asked me for that, and I'm like, well, maybe around Christmas we'll be doing some more Mario Kart racing here in the household. It's wild to think that like Nintendo and Steam, there seems to be this very ingrained strategy on both of them. It's do nothing and win. You have Gabe literally like doing nothing to, like you have Epic and all these other, PC storefronts, and Steam's like, we're not going to do anything. You have Nintendo going like, you know what, we're going to let Microsoft and Sony fight out this battle for, processing power and selling consoles at a loss. We're going to go over here and we're just going to not compete with you guys and win. It's like, it's absolutely mind blowing.
It's just that's my go-to console because most of my JRPGs are there.
Yeah,
and I love my Nintendo IPs and everything. Yes, I do want a Nintendo console that has some great horsepower because, like Xenoblade Chronicles, man, like I think Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and 3 definitely suffered the most as far as like frame rate and stuff like that. And I can see that Monolith Soft could have did so much more if that had more horsepower. And plus I want to be able to go to the store and say, you know what, I don't want to get the PlayStation version or the Xbox version of this third-party title. Let me get the Nintendo Switch, Nintendo version of this because it's on par or close to being on par, with their power and stuff like that. But every time I come to multiplats, I never get the Switch version because it's inferior compared to the other ones, unless it's an exclusive game, unless it's a first-party title, then I more so buy it for the Nintendo Switch. But third-party, not in most cases.
There's a few exceptions. I just recently went and bought Minecraft on my Switch because I've been I tweeted this out today. I have successfully transitioned my children from Roblox into Minecraft, and it is so much better. I was like, this is so, because I noticed it, like I was like, okay, well, I was always skeptical of Roblox. I was like, all right, let's see what this is about. All right,
it's a little bit like an AIM chat room. Like you don't know.
It's an AIM chat room.
And then they were playing this game where this monster was chasing them, and they're laughing their heads off. I'm like, this is creepy. Like this is like as an adult, I am creeped out by what you guys are playing. And the thing I saw them doing the most was just building. They would play these games where they have to build houses to protect from like a giant wave. Turns out you can do that and create like Minecraft creative mode, which I still to this day have never played Minecraft. The kids are asking me how to do something, and I was like, you should call Chris. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know what's happening, but I like you playing this more than I liked what you were playing previously. So we've successfully done that this year, which was a goal of mine. That would like, I think some news broke, like was really concerning like 2 months ago, and I was like, all right, we deleting the app. Oh, kids, it doesn't work anymore. Why don't you try Minecraft? So they're playing it on the Xbox and they're playing it on the TVs, and then I went and bought it for the Switch. And so there's it's definitely a game that I think it works well on the Switch. They're having a lot of fun with it. All right. In other news, this last couple of weeks have been interesting. And Mugen, thank you for joining us, because we're going to be talking about Dragon Age, the Veilguard, and whether it's a success or not. The internet has mixed opinions. I know where I fall on it when we look at the numbers for the sale through in terms of development cost. But I'd like to open up with you. Like, are you like where do you fall with Dragon Age Veilguard? Are you somebody who wanted to play it? Are you a Dragon Age fan? Are you do you think the game's a success?
Yeah. I'm gonna be very upfront. I never played any of the Dragon Age games. That's why I didn't really comment on it like that or give my opinion, because I never really played them. But it was at one point where I wanted to try, which was Dragon Age Inquisition, because my brothers had it back then and everything. He said, man, you should give it a try. It's a good game. So I end up one day was a sale about like 3 or 4 years ago on Steam. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna give Dragon Age Inquisition a try. I went to go install it, and they told me I need to get the EA launcher or some crap like that. So I had to download the EA launcher. I installed it, then it started messing with my computer. My computer started slowing down. It started crashing and stuff. I'm like, what the hell is going on? This never happened before. So I just uninstalled it and just said, you know what? I'm not playing it. I'm just not going to play the game. But when it comes to Veilguard, I didn't really have any high expectations for it because I never played any of the previous ones. But I know that there's a lot of diehard fans out there that enjoy those type of games. But I also thought about, okay, this is an IP that haven't been had a game in a very, very long time. And now we're looking at the current time of gaming, you know, with the narratives and everything like that. So I said there could be a possibility that they could screw this up and everything. And when we first saw the actual footage of it, and I saw the cast members and the character designs and stuff, I said, yeah, it looked like a modern audience game. So I said, I know it's going to be a lot of controversy with this. And as much as the controversy is, I still said that, it's still Dragon Age. There could be a possibility that this game could just sell a lot based on its name
on its brand, on
its brand alone. So I start saying to a lot of people within my audience, I said, look, it has things that you don't like about it, but don't be surprised if the game does perform pretty well just because of the name alone. But looking at it right now and everything, and comparing it to what Dragon Age was like, and comparing it to other franchises, that's around the same ballpark and genre and stuff, I don't really think it's doing as good as it should be doing. And also, as you said about the budget as well, as much as money they put into that, and the amount of years that he put into that, and that's the player base, the player size that you can only conjure up. So, but you can see the media spinning around. This is the most played or whatever Dragon Age game is doing pretty good, and for EA and stuff. I don't know, man. I don't think it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna have legs.
I saw a lot of people point to that article and I go, you should go reread that article. and it's that I'd estimate the sales between anywhere from 1 to 1.5 million. I think a lot of that was driven off of obviously brand and fans of the franchise. But that does not compare to the 12 million that Inquisition sold through, and that doesn't recoup their costs. That they're nowhere close to recouping their costs. And then stories talk about, more stories come out of refunds. And even rumors suggest that they might have actually sold less than Star Wars Outlaws, that it's that, you definitely saw a big surge on Steam for them. That's what the article said. It was that for this is the biggest, EA launch on Steam. Well, it turns out the only other launch that they had was the Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and Star Wars Jedi Survivor didn't take 8 years to make. So Star Wars, in there, they estimate Star Wars Jedi Survivor at roughly 1.5, 1.8 million units sold. EA doesn't make these kind of announcements, which is fine. But yeah, that could be profitable when you take only 3 years to make a game.
Yeah.
That when you take 8 years to make a game and 150 million, you have to move 4 to 5 million units. And I think the controversy did hurt them. And so I would go out to say that when we look at Gamergate 2.0 over the course of 2024, this was the real test. We really haven't seen a game come out. And there people like, Lord Drifter saying that they're enjoying the game. Like that's great. There are things to actually like about it. There's legitimate praise. There's legitimate things that are interesting that I've seen people talk about, and there's legitimate critique as well. And it has become so divisive, but it didn't become so divisive in so much that we saw the Hogwarts Legacy effect in reverse, where the Gamergaters 2.0, the Gamergaters actually end up promoting the game more. But I do find it a little bit weird, and I'd like to get y'all's thoughts on it, is that a lot of the Gamergaters are actually playing this game. I think they're saying they're doing it for the memes, but it's like, it does feel just a little bit to say we shouldn't buy this game, but I'm going to play it for you guys. Like, what do y'all think about that? Chris, you also have some thoughts.
I don't think that this is the game that acts as the litmus test either way. Like, I just don't know. I think it's a whimper. People want it to be that big story, but I don't think in a few years, the way you just brought up Hogwarts, and we all know what you're talking about, that this is going to be a game people remember.
Okay.
Because it's not the world's best game ever. It's not shattering records. It's not the reason that we know BioWare will be a household name in a decade or 2 decades. It's not amazing. It's also not bad. Like, it seems to have people are like, yeah, I played it. It was a game. I had fun. Like, it's fine. And so, like, it just doesn't seem to be, it's not a Concord moment or an Anthem moment where we're going to remember them forever because they just exploded spectacularly. It's just a game. Company spends lots of money. We're not sure if it's profitable. They're not going to tell us company's still around. Like, it's just not, it's not that exciting. And because Dragon Age is a name that even if you don't play the franchise, you recognize, it feels like it should have to fall in one camp or the other. But it's just another game. Like, I think some Assassin's Creed games are like this. They're just games. They don't rock the world like, maybe a God of War will or a Monster Hunter, but they come out with another one. So clearly they're making some money at it.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens, because they've already announced that they're not supporting the game. Like, they've already announced that they're shifting 100% all in, focusing on Mass Effect 5. So yeah, they're definitely going to be around. I think that's what they're looking at as their next project. I do wonder if we see bigger differences in Mass Effect 5 due to this shift, because they were very blatant in terms of their marketing and the things that they were talking about. That was like, I question is like, are they trying to go with the divisive marketing? Are they trying like to really lean in and I guess as Jason Schreier said, own the chuds, so to speak. But yeah, like, it's interesting. What do you guys think about the Gamergaters that are actually playing the game? Like, how do you feel about that? Because I feel weird. Like, I'm like,
that's a good question. That's a good question. Is because I think I seen a clip where Vera Dark was on the side scrollers because was talking about because the same question that you're asking, because Mighty Keith was saying that these same culture war warriors or anti-woke people, you're ragging on the game, but yet you guys are playing the game. Doesn't that, you're contributing to, the success or the money and everything like that. So like, what you guys are doing? So Very Dark was pretty much saying that, there's a lot of game journalists out there. Do they actually play the games that they're considered called, reviewing and stuff like that? And she was pretty much saying that she don't want to, just criticize something and don't play it. She would rather play it to have more knowledge on it, to be able to give her a full actual thoughts of how she feel about it. And I don't know, I'm kind of lukewarm on that. I don't know, how to, I want to go about that. But for me personally, which is the reason why when I create my content, I always tell people, play the game that you want to play. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to tell you to play something, not to play something, then I turn around and play that same exact game or whatever that I told you guys not to play or, invest in and stuff like that. Do what the hell you want to do. So it kind of like create this weird situation here where you have a group of people within this movement that turns around and makes a bunch of this content and then turn around and just play away at the game and make money off of it by streaming it. People sending them money, asking them questions about the game and stuff like that. So yeah, I can see like the hypocrisy in that as well. You know what I'm saying? But as far as like Mass Effect 5 is concerned, and it's a good thing you mentioned, you talked about this. We don't know how culture and everything is going to be by the time that game comes out and how they develop games. And I was also explaining to my audience that culture shift faster than games are being developed. Yeah. And that's the problem with Concord and a lot of these other games, because you have all these, like, the culture is at one point where you had Anita Sarkeesian, you have the movements and all these movements coming out. So it was the perfect time to make games that's part of that type of culture at that time. But then you have games that's constantly being pushed back. So 8 years later or whatever like that, they drop the game. The culture already shifted already. People don't want it no more. So then the games come out, it's an automatic failure. So that's why
I heard about Concord. People were saying, like, if it came out during COVID, like, it probably would have.
Yeah, it would have worked. It definitely would have worked, because at that time. So when when it comes to Mass Effect 5 or whatever like that, I'm not going to be the one to say, oh, I don't know about it or whatever like that, because I don't know what the next 5 years is going to be culturally, especially within the culture war or the culture space when it comes to gaming. It could be totally different then, and they could be developing with the future in mind of what the culture could possibly be like, you know? Mm-hmm. So
it doesn't make any sense for, okay, so there's two types of people that can review a game and not like it. The first are your game reviewers, and they play it through because they want to be thorough. So somebody like Skill Up that comes out and says, this game wasn't for me, but I played it to completion, and let me tell you about my thoughts. Not just about the character creator or the opening cutscene, but I played it through well beyond the point where I already knew that it wasn't for me, to make sure that it didn't kind of suddenly get better at the end. Right. That there wasn't something I wasn't aware of.
Some redeeming quality.
That's not playing it. That's playing it because he's actually doing research.
Right.
Then there's people that play it out of morbid curiosity. These are like people that bought Concord after it was announced that it was shutting down. Right? They wouldn't have bought it otherwise, but now you have a chance to experience something. Like you have a chance to go buy front row seats to a train wreck. And you're like, well, I mean, I always kind of wanted to see one. And it's awful, and like I wish they didn't happen, but this one did happen. So like I should see this one. And so that's kind of a group of people that, like, I get it, right? Kind of the rubbernecking when you're on the road and you're like looking at the car that wrecked. Like,
right.
Don't Google fire trucks. Wait until you're driving down the road at 60 miles an hour and then look at a fire truck while operating your vehicle. This is a good plan. But the people who like they're not doing it to put out some sort of comprehensive review. They're not doing it out of admitted curiosity. They're just saying, I hate this game. I don't really understand it. Like it's like I get some piece of food and I'm like, this is awful. And I paid for it with my own money and I hate it. And I'm just going to eat all of it. And it's so terrible. It's so terrible. It's like, all I can think is then stop eating it. Like, I don't understand. And there's this logical, like, then I pirated it. Okay. The food is so bad. And that's why I snuck into the back of the restaurant and I stole it. And I'm eating all the food because it's so bad. I don't get it. Like, I don't understand what your end goal is. It's like when we're against a fashion brand and people light their already purchased and used things on fire. Right. Like, I'm going to take my name brand shoes and I'm going to put out a Twitter post where I have now like inhaled toxic fumes while smoking these things to a smolder, even though they got my money like multiple quarters ago. I don't understand what your end goal is.
I think the answer to that is attention, right? Like, that is the root of it, because if you're taking something and putting it online and in a public way, because I make videos, with me and the kids that live in a private status for me and the family, that's not for the public to consume, but for the public, and that's the thing, especially when people are like, you're just doing it for the views. It's like, nobody hits publish and hopes that nobody sees it. Oh God.
Okay, but what's the end goal? Like, when I hit publish on a video, I like that it starts the conversation. I married my best friend, and I love being married to my best friend, but she doesn't play video games that much. She plays some Switch games. She doesn't really want to have the conversation we're having right now. And so online is a place that I can go let that part of myself shine. And so, like, that's my reason for hitting publish. If I had like a group of guys that all lived on the same street as me and we all hung out 2 or 3 nights a week and talked about games, I probably would have never made my first video because that would have been satisfied locally just with those conversations. But instead I had to go to the internet to find those conversations. And I enjoy that, but that's why I do it. I don't understand the like attention for attention's sake. Like the people who like are the pranksters that are like, I went up and waved a gun in this person's face. Look at how scared they are. Like, I don't get those people either. And so this is the exact same. Like, I don't like what, let's do this 200 times and then think about where that puts us. Does that move you in some direction you want to be? Like, I don't know. I don't know.
It's hard because
I don't
also
understand
like
hate playing a game.
Yeah. Each individual, can only answer really that question for themselves, because it's like, well, what's your end game here? What's your goal? I think a part of it is that I like that, because I've seen Vera make that case, over on Twitter or on something else, not on the side scrollers. That's where I didn't see it, but it was talking about like, no, I'm going to play these for review, just like Skill said with Skill Up. And then, yes, you already know that Vera has like a bias, etc. But there is a level of that. Like if I'm putting out something for a review, like to have that conversation around this game and really try to analyze it. Yeah, that's no issue. I think that's where it's like, for me, I'm like, I was never upset by Dragon Age, like, because it wasn't a series that I've grown up with, right? And so I was like, all right, I'll check it out. And then it's like, well, based off of their marketing, I was like, yeah, it doesn't look like a game that I'm going to enjoy. No big deal. Set it down. What my curiosity has been the entire time is the question of, is a video game boycott possible? And I think what we're seeing this year, and I would say that what we've seen with Dragon Age Veilguard, is the answer is that yes, it is. I think there's other factors beyond this boycott that's attributing to the overall sales decline, but I think it is having an impact, and I think social media has made that more apparent, and more people are using social media than traditional media as well for the news, and so it tends to have a little bit more virality. What do you think, Riz?
I think Skill Up's review did more damage than anybody that came out and was mad about a pronoun or anything like that. I think a legitimate, cohesive, cognizant review that said, I don't want to wish this failure. I like BioWare. I like Dragon Age. This is where I'm coming from, and these are my honest feelings, and here are sources. Maybe that's just me wishful thinking, but I believe that an honest conversation like that is substantially easier to trust an internet figurehead than somebody who's just raging to rage. Maybe that's not true. Maybe the rage carries, and maybe it's about effort. Maybe there can be 200 ragers for every one Skill Up. And so the 200 ragers, even though individually they're not as effective, maybe it did cause a lot of damage. But Hogwarts, if you played Hogwarts, you were called some nasty names by some groups of people, and it did not stop people from buying it. And Dragon Age has been memed into the ground in some corners of the internet, and yet people are more than happy. Even in those places, I see comments that are like, I'm playing it and having a good time. So like it doesn't seem to be like McDonald's, where I meet 200 people and I ask them all if they go to McDonald's and they all tell me no. And it's like, then who the hell is buying these hamburgers? I like McDonald's. And when I say that, people like judge me. And it's like, it's not only me, guys. I'm not. Every time I get in line, there's somebody in front of me. Where are these other people?
I got a McDonald's story for you, and I'm very curious of what you guys think, because I have never gotten my order right at a McDonald's, and to the point where in my 20s, I swore off going to a McDonald's ever again. I will drive to I will go to a Long John Silver's outside of Flint, and that over a McDonald's. And that boycott, my private little personal boycott, nobody at McDonald's ever felt it or even knew that this is what I was doing, because they could never get my order like right. And it wasn't even a hard thing. It was like a simple thing, and it would always, something would be messed up with it. I was like, all right. But when I had children and we were like, all right, McDonald's is great now. Like, they got a play place and the kids can go play. And then you have all these little things, and it's relatively cheap. It hasn't been cheap recently, but I think
you need the app.
Yeah,
people are comparing prices today over prices of inflation, and they get accused of being the most like inflation heavy fast food chain. But I have to wonder if those people are factoring in for app prices.
I don't think they're factoring.
My wife would be like, "What did you buy at McDonald's for $1.78?" And I was like, 3 hamburgers.
Right.
It's like, what? It's like, yeah, it's points all over you. And it's like
Yeah.
booking airfare on points. If you're not
You're
playing the
1000%
game,
right.
you are getting screwed.
Yeah.
People that walk by me and wait in line and pay full price, I'm like,
They're probably also selling your data
My
to kind of
God.
help subsidize that. So it's like,
those
yeah,
people are paying subscriptions for seat warmers. I am living a different life, much more frugal. McDonald's is 100% achievable on the app. And I find that they make less mistakes. As somebody that cannot eat cheese, so if they put cheese on something, I have to send it back. I find that since they allowed me to start taking over my own ordering process, at least now I know that the receipt is right. And so now it's only we've removed one layer of mistakes where the cook made it right, but the person put it in wrong. We've removed that because I'm putting my own food in now. I like it.
Very cool.
Very pro McDonald's.
Mugen, where do you got any final thoughts on this subject?
No, I just want to see how this is going to play out, after a month go by and see where it stands. But I don't think it's going to have any legs in my personal opinion.
I'm not looking forward to the inevitable articles that Dragon Age Veilguard has lost over 90% of its player base. A single player game that's a narrative driven experience.
I never understood that.
It drives me nuts.
Yeah, it's a single
drives
Breath of the Wild's really in the toilet these days compared to launch week. That's how you know it's not a good game.
Never understood that. Never understood that.
It gets people clicking. I like that. That is the answer. Like, I think a lot of this boils down to the attention driven economy that we are actively taking part in, which is wild. Also, we got a Real Kitty Hawk, aka Wes, with 30 months of support. So, excuse me, 62 months with a 30-month streak at tier 3.
It's hard to believe we've even been doing this for 62
I know.
months.
62 months. Goodness gracious. He says the DA situation was never bothered by the political controversy it suffered from. It was more concerned with the reports of the game not being able to technically function while working. I saw this happen live with Cole, which I shared with you, Brian. Yet the online reviews all said that the new DA game was technically flawless with no issues. And yeah, and you did share that with me. I've heard that I have heard more positive in terms of the technical aspect, but I don't feel, like I have the ability to actually weigh in because I wasn't going to play it. I'm not going to go pick it up and play it and see if I have technical
you also
problems.
have to test a lot of it. Like if a game reviewer only gets 10 hours at work, like the people who work for a publisher who guarantees them a salary and benefits, they expect a certain amount of articles in trade for that monthly compensation. And so I am not convinced that the vast majority of those reviewers, unless they're choosing to do this off hours, are getting to complete all of the games that they review. They might complete some of them, but some of these games are too long. When you talk about games that can have 40, 60, 80 hours of content, and then there's side content, and then there's replayability, and there's things that you're supposed to experience on your second playthrough or on a different class that you didn't get to see. How complete can you be compared to a YouTuber that put all their time in because they were going to game anyway, and they just happened to have, recorded it. And so like you can have people that are having different experiences than a game reviewer that only played 10 hours. Even just through sense of scale. You're saying this game only sold 1 million copies. Okay, so the first hour of the game has been played 100 times by reviewers, and it's been played 1 million times by players.
Right.
There are going to be people that had some different experiences.
What I think is going to be interesting, kind of as my final thought on this subject, is like kind of what Wes alluded to, is that there was a massive concerted push from legacy media really trying to highlight the game, in a very positive light. Look at these numbers. This is like, technically flawless. They also repeated this, like the same phrase across all of these sites in these reviews, a return to form, which essentially just kind of leads credence to the theory that there is some collusion or even what, people have called astroturfing in terms of like, we're trying to get this to as many people as possible. We're going to limit the people who actually can review this game to a certain subsect of content creators and reviewers, thus to try and hopefully juice sales. And I'm not actually concerned by that practice, because it's kind of like, if you screw me once, like, okay, shame on you. But if you screw me twice, like, that's a me problem, at that point.
But is return to form more clickable? Is there data that drives that? Are these
templates
being written by AI, which has turned out to not necessarily be invention, but is just reductive? And so if they're all using the same AI model to template out their review, like, ooh, that return to form, I like that. And so like, I just assume laziness long before maliciousness.
No, I don't necessarily
Like,
think it's maliciousness. I do think that it does kind of lead it where it's like, okay, because you're right. It literally could be more algorithmically driven than anything else, where it's like, oh, we know if we use this phrase that the YouTube and the Google and everything is going to push the article. And that's been actually one of the big questions that I've had about all of this, like, whether it's shifts in culture or not, but it's like, how much of this is all just algorithmically driven?
Return to form, your review's out there, but it's down at the bottom because it didn't align with all the other ones. I don't know if you saw that data about, we just went through an election cycle here in the US and everybody's in agreement and we're all feeling great. So as we went through this divisive year, there was some data that came out and said, like, why are algorithms so leaning towards one set of parties' views versus another's? And there was some data that came out and basically said the algorithms look for things that can be sourced multiple times. So if somebody says something, I don't trust that. But if 10 people say the same thing, it's probably true. This like more Wikipedia style mindset that like all of us as a whole actually know a lot of crap. But any one of us, we're probably a little misinformed. Well, we have one side of our political spectrum is heavily dominated by a singular outlet. And that outlet has worked very hard to push anybody else on their side of the aisle out. And that means that when they come out with an article, there's no other source. They're the source. And so the algorithm is like, well, I don't know if I believe that, right? Like, because there's no way to back it up, as opposed to the other side, which has fractured itself across 10, 15 outlets, is like, okay, well, at least they're all saying return to form. Like, at least they're all saying the same thing. And so naturally it would get uprated in some of these algorithms as a result, not because of anybody steering it, because of something so much dumber. If you're an English teacher and 20 students all turn in the same phrase, you don't assume those students have gotten together as a conspiracy to try to screw you, the English teacher, and convince you of something else about this book that you told them to write a report on. You assume they cheated. Like, you just assume they've all seen each other's paper, or they're all working off the same source material, or they're all using the same AI model. You assume laziness, not, oh, I bet they've got it in for me. I bet they want me to believe something about Huckleberry Finn that I didn't learn in college. Like, it's a whole lot dumber than that.
Oh, there! I never thought about that. Never thought about the algorithm and how it push articles and stuff. That's something I need to take under consideration. Do a video about stuff like that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and if you go and do that as well. Mugen, you've got some stuff you're about getting ready to launch here in the next 2 months, if my timing is correct. You want to tell everybody about it and where people can find you?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I started a comic book company actually 4 years ago, but I'll be launching officially in January of 2025. The name of my comic book company is called Orion Comics. And my first comic book series is called VK, which those of you guys are interested, January of 2025, you'll be able to pre-order the comic book. The comic book is already done. That's why it's called a pre-order campaign on Kickstarter. I invested like $50,000 of my own money over the course of 4 years. So this is like the biggest risk I've ever taken in my life. And I'm the story writer. I have an artist. Her name is Jessica. She's from the Philippines. She does all my artwork. But yes, the book is already done. So that's why it's called a pre-order campaign, which means all you guys have to do is put money down to pre-order. I'm not asking you guys to give me money to get the book made because the book is already made. It's 4 covers. This is the base cover. It starts at $15. There's also a digital for $5. And if you buy the physical, you get the digital that come along with it. So this is the base cover. This is cover B. It goes up by $5. So this is $20. And then right here, which is, I showed my viewers, he loved this one the most, the monochrome one, cover C, $25. Well, what I like about what my artist had done, she also drew the back of the main character, the protagonist. So drew him from the back and drew him in the front, which I thought was pretty cool. And then cover D, which is $30 right here. This is cover D. And what I did with cover D, when you open it up, it makes a full picture and everything. So what I did with cover D, the idea I have is that it foreshadows like events sometimes in the book itself or future events later on within the story arc. So those of you who read it and everything can go back and look at it and everything and say, oh, okay, I get it or whatever. Here's the inside. This is so people see what the art style is.
That's gorgeous, dude.
Yeah. She's really, really good. So yeah, I'm going with more like an anime aesthetic, or I guess you would say a marriage between Western and Eastern, comics and stuff like that when it comes to that. But yeah, this is a shared universe, so I'm going to have different comic book series and everything like that. As you can see right here, these are all my comic book characters from different series, especially this one right here, the Valiant and Cinders. This is pretty much like my Justice League or my Avengers. So these characters come from their own individual books, and they eventually come together and join up as one big team and everything. So,
and some of these characters were actually your father created.
Yeah. That's what ended up happening with that. My dad, back then when he was like 15 years old, he started drawing and stuff, and he wanted to work for Marvel Comics. So he started, practicing drawing, started just doing like fan-made comics and everything with Marvel characters. But at the same time, he was creating his own original characters and everything. And what happened was, he ended up becoming a father. He ended up having me. My mom, he wound up marrying my mom and everything, and end up having my siblings. So he wound up becoming a full-time dad, and he put all his dreams to the side. So he used to show me his books, his sketchbooks of some of his characters, his original characters. So what I decided to do was when I started Venus and Orion Comics, I went to my artist, and I remember when my dad left his sketchbook in his room. So I took it, snapshot some pictures of his characters, gave it to my artist, and I was like, I want you to draw them in anime form, anime style and everything. And I did a presentation to my dad, and I was like, yeah, Dad, like I brought your characters to life, and I want to incorporate them in my universe. And oh man, my dad almost cried and everything. So yeah, now Dad is on board working with projects with me and everything, and all his rogue gallery of villains and heroes and stuff like that are all incorporated in my comic book universe. So I've been planning a lot of this ahead of time. I have a roadmap. So phase 1 is called The Foundation, and that's pretty much introducing the many different mechanics of my Venus Orion Comics universe through different comic book series. And the thing about it is each individual comic series it has its own standalone story. It's in the same universe. As you read these stories, you can tell where they're placed in the universe, while other comic book series are going on. But readers don't have to feel like they're bogged down with homework. So you don't have to buy all the books to understand everything. No, if you want to get one story and just invest in that story, sure. But every story does contribute to a much bigger narrative. So everybody feels like they're contributing to something. So if you don't read this, but that person read that, they can still come together and share things and put it all together and stuff like that. So yeah, man, this is something that I'm kind of anxious and excited, kind of scared, because this is a big risk. I have never done anything like this before, but I really want this to become something really, really big, because comic books is just a start. I want to start an independent game studio. I want to do video games, especially RPGs. I really want to do RPGs and everything, because I have my own anthology RPG series called Galenia. And I have been working on that since RPG Maker, and I already have 8 of them plotted out already and stuff like that. So eventually I want to do my own RPGs, and then I want to have my own animation studios and get this stuff made into like anime and stuff like that. So
making moves, dude. It's way to put yourself out there. I really hope that you have some success. For those asking, I saw Chili was asking for a link. I've got Mugen tagged in the description of this. I'm sure that you can find all of his like work and projects over on his YouTube channel and more. So we thank you for joining us. Chris, how about you, sir? You got anything you want? Are you working on a multiverse or a shared universe here?
No. I was just going to play some games this week and then let you guys know how that went next week. Like no major life moves. I will go back and say, like, I'm aware of this down here. I assume when they were all sent review copies that there was certain language in there. I would assume that that's very easy to pull from. I don't think that the game devs wrote the articles for them. So they may have presented the game with the back of the box art saying, "This is us returning to form," and they're like, "Ooh, yeah." So like it may be something like that. It may have come from the original seed, may not have been organic at all. It may have come from direct from the publisher. But the fact that like Skillup didn't call it a return to form, like the fact that there were people who played it that that wasn't a universal term.
Did
So I don't
anybody
think it was a
who not like
requirement.
it call it a return to form though? Like that's where, it's like it generally is associated with it being in a positive light.
I don't know. I haven't seen all of the reviews yet. I watched some of them. I haven't watched all of them. So it would be interesting if somebody put together a list of like who all got a review copy and see if there's language that shows up over and over and over, and use that as kind of our conspiracy thread to pull on. I really assume it's laziness. I just assume laziness. Yeah. When in doubt, I just assume humans are lazy. Yeah. That like the guy who cut you off in traffic because they weren't paying attention and they didn't realize that their exit was in 200 feet and their time was more important than yours. It really wasn't like they saw your face and was like, oh, I gotta get this guy. I can tell that Ginger Prime has a bunch of kids and that I can screw him over right now and that he'll be 3 minutes late and that's going to make a difference. Like, it's really much dumber than that. They just wanted the spot and then you left enough space and they took it. Like, it wasn't like, gotcha. I don't know.
So you can play some games this coming week, and
I don't think it's that big of a deal. So the idea, and that's what it would be called, is this idea that they are conspiring, that they are contributing towards this alternative narrative. I don't think it's anything like that. I think that yes, devs want positive reviews, and yes, devs do blackball reviewers that are consistently negative, and so that in itself causes reviewers to not be malicious unless they can back it up. Because they want to be on the review list next time. So unless they're trying to protect some abundance of integrity, they tend to lean towards the positive, people with review copies.
What will be interesting to kind of, because I agree, I think volume also, size, because like, will Skill Up be hurt by his negative review? Well, he still reaches a massive audience. Mm-hmm. And if all of a sudden he doesn't get access to Mass Effect 5, then that would look, that would almost kind of somewhat confirm that, at least in my perspective, where they're like, yeah, he reaches countless amounts of people. He does such thorough reviews. People trust him, especially after Dragon Age. And but that's what it's like. It would make business sense.
I think not giving him a Mass Effect copy now would do more harm than good because he was so measured. I think people that came out and said, I haven't played this game, but here are the following baseless claims I'm going to make. If they in between now and Mass Effect become video game creators and then request a copy, that feels like something that would go against them. And so I don't know. He's been negative on games before and he still gets copies, but I think it's because he's calm and measured and he's large. Mm-hmm. If somebody's calm and measured and small, you're right. They could get snuffed out. It's just not worth the risk. But he's calm, measured, and very big in the space. And plays games to completion. So I keep using him as my example because I think he is one of the best examples of what, in my opinion, a game reviewer should be.
All right. Mm-hmm. And for me, I think I'm trying to think what I've got really coming up. Just playing more Call of Duty, and I'm working my way through playing the story of New World Eternum on console, and just kind of dabbling here and there. We talked about like some big games, Metaphor being 100 hours. I'm hoping to get to Final Fantasy Rebirth, as people have been praising that. And so we'll see if that decides to roll out on PC or if they're going to keep that locked away on PlayStation for another couple of months. Time will ultimately tell with that one, but it's going to be a fun, I think a couple of months of gaming. It seems like for the most part, all the real big hitters are coming out. Monster Hunter, I got to play the Monster Hunter Wilds beta, and that was a ton of fun, and that's coming out in February. So it's like I feel like I got actually a window of time where I can kind of work and chip away at my backlog over the next couple of months. I have not been able to play Ashes of Creation yet. I've attempted to play it twice and still have not had success, and hopefully I'll be able to maybe get some time in this weekend with it, and then like Chris will be playing some 14. Maybe we can come back next show and talk about Ashes and 14 and more. But that's going to wrap us up for our show this week. We will be back this same time next Friday. We wish you guys all the absolute best. Thank you for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.